All right, guys. Thank you all again for joining us today. Today is May the 8th, and you're with the International Association of Woodcarvers, where woodcarvers are helping woodcarvers. We started out helping each other during the pandemic. Lucky for us, it seems in some places that it's kind of dropping off, but I know in other places like Canada, they're still under lockdown. So thank you all for joining us during this time. I know, again, it's spring, and a lot of people have a hard time getting on during spring. So thank you for taking time out of your day on a Saturday to come in and meet with us. Today, we've got with us Mr. Charles Banks that's coming to us from central Minnesota. Charles is going to be talking to us about Scandinavian wood carvings and flat plane carvings. Before we get Charles on, I wanted to tell you a little bit about some workshops that's coming up. That's through the Woodcarving Academy. If you're interested in taking classes right now, make sure you go out on Woodcarving Academy and check out what they have available there. The next class that's going to be starting is Bob Hershey's class. It's Fearless Freddy. It's a surfing frog. That class is starting on May the 15th. So if you're interested in that, check with Bob Hershey, and he'll make sure that he gets you signed up. In June, we have a few classes coming up. Ryan Olson's going to have a miniatures class starting on June the 5th. Dale Green also has a class on a cowboy called Roper. It's going to be also starting on May the 5th. Dave Stetson's going to have a standing figure with folded arms class that's going to start on June the 19th. I think that's a new class for him. Janet Cordell is going to be starting a class on June the 7th on carving an old face. So make sure you check that out. And then I know there's some other classes that's going to be coming up in July and August. We'll be talking about those at a later date once they're posted on Woodcarving Academy. But there's plenty of opportunity out there to take classes. You can also subscribe to Woodcarving Academy and take advantage of all the classes and footage that they have available out there. So make sure you go out, check them out, and sign up for subscription through them. Dwayne Gosnell has a Whittling Wednesday class that he's doing. If you're interested in that, check out Dwayne's website. And then I think Chris Hammock still has some spots available in the classes that he's doing. So if you're interested in his classes, make sure you contact Chris and sign up for those. Wanted to thank Woodcarving Academy and Chip Chats. Both of them have either done advertisements for this meeting, or Chip Chats actually did a whole article on our meeting. So I wanted to take a few minutes to thank them for the advertising for International Association of Woodcarvers. Again, if you're interested in carving articles, step-by-step articles and things like that, check out those magazines. I think Chip Chats now has a new website too, so make sure you go out and look at that. And I know they've got some other things coming. So looks like a lot of things available for woodcarvers. Make sure you check out all those offerings. If you have any questions about things that are coming up, you can also reach out to us through Instagram, Facebook, and we'll be sure to try to help you or point you in the right direction as far as getting the resources that you need. Again, today we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Charles Banks. Charles is coming to us from central Minnesota. He's going to be talking to us about a special way to do wood carvings in flat plane style. So Charles, thank you for joining us today, and we're happy to have you, and we'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
All right, thanks everybody. So yeah, I'm Charles Banks. I am out of Litchfield, Minnesota, central Minnesota. I first started carving just after I got married. 1991 is when I started carving. My first carving is right here. Don't ever give away your first carving or throw it in the garbage can. This is my first carving right here. This was my first year of marriage. Apparently, and I wanted to be a carver. I'm an art teacher out of central Minnesota. So for 30 years, I've been doing the visual arts, but I've always been really interested in wood carving. This was my first carving, and I made this with an X-Acto knife. I don't even have an X-Acto knife to hold up here, but I made this with an X-Acto knife sitting in a swing set across the road from our first little apartment we had. And so I'd sit over there in the swing set when she'd kick me out, you know, and I'd have to go have something to do. Well, anyway, that's my first ever carving. From there, I was have always been interested in the Scandinavian arts. I got my first book not long after that, which was a Harley Refsall book. And if you don't know Harley Refsall, you want to look into his work. He was just a phenomenal wood carver, internationally known. The first time I ever met him, I didn't have enough money to take his class, but I was in the same area. So I went over with my book and he signed my book for me, which was fantastic. And I asked him, I said, well, you know, when I save up my money, and can I take it, when are you going to have your next class? And he said, here in America or in Norway? And right there I was hooked. So he teaches not only just here in America, nationally, he'll go internationally as well, as you guys probably all know. Anyway, so Harley's been a big influence for me, and flat plane carving itself is, you've had other flat plane carvers on. Flat plane carving to me is the art of simplification. The whole goal is to simplify your characters. It's one tool proficiency. When I finally did get money and take a class, I walked into my first class with a whole toolbox, and the instructor looked at it and he said, hey, he said, you got a knife in there? He said, well, what's in that toolbox? I said, oh, it's all my carving tools. And he said, well, you're here for a flat plane class. And I said, sure. And I brought my tools, and he said, you got a knife in there? And I said, yep. And he said, take the knife out and take that toolbox back to your truck. All you get is one tool, a knife. So it's one tool proficiency, we like to call it. One thing I'd say too, it's in the flat plane world, don't over carve, simplify your cuts. When you make a cut, there's a starting point, there's a stopping point. So as you carve your characters, try to as you make your cuts, try to have just the starting point, the stopping point is going to be one cut. So it's a push cut, it's a pull cut, V cuts, maybe some heavy chip cuts. I also like the idea of the rule of thirds in art. It's a compositional tool that you can use in the visual arts, but you can also apply it to wood carving. And thirds would be an example. Here's a little character. This is actually Harley himself. That's Harley as a caricature, not finished yet, but it's underway. Thirds would be every surface has, if you could take that surface and make 3 cuts in it. So here's a little blank that I'd use. I'll show you this blank in a moment, but if you just, and I call it just knocking off the edges. If you just knock off the edges, you've got 3 cuts on a surface, and it gives you form and 3-dimensionality. But it also has these nice flat edges and flat angles. All right, well, the characters, so we have blocks. I use basswood, northern basswood coming out of Minnesota, a lot from Wisconsin as well. So thank you, Wisconsin, for your beautiful basswood. So I'll take a block, and this is the blank that I typically will use, something like this. It's kind of based on that classic S curve, kind of a caricature study of people. This would be a nice cutout that I would use for the start of a character. And that character, let's see, it could be, well, here's one that would be similar then. So there's what possibly that could turn into. I love the tradition of Scandinavian flat plane carving. I love the carving little old men, little old gals, trolls. I've been getting into that as well. But anyway, with that one blank, you can carve hundreds of characters with this one blank. Unfortunately, so I can carve women, but a lot of times my women end up looking like little angry Native American men, so I just turn them into little angry Native American men. But I'll work on that, try to get better at that. But the little old men seem to work well for me. All right, let's see. So we have, I also enjoy carving other things, the Dala horse as well. Very simple Dalas. This is one of Harley's patterns from his classes. Put a little embellishment on them. I also like to carve characters that, okay, so we have this idea of heavy on tradition, traditional cuts, traditional characters, but I'm also interested in where we can take them. So for example, a character like this. So I've shifted his weight just a bit on the pattern and put him in a Marius sweater, which is a traditional Norwegian sweater. And then make him look, I guess, maybe a little bit younger. But so pattern work. A lot of carvers get a little bit, well, I can't draw. I'm not very good at drawing, or I'm not very good at coming up with patterns. So do you have patterns we can work off of? And it's one thing I would suggest to everyone is try to get better at those skills, because once you start developing your own patterns and characters, then you can build so many more varieties of character, and you have more freedom as a carver to build your own characters. So, you know, don't say you can't do it, just see if you can improve those skills. I'm also thinking it might be an interesting idea to go online, you know, from a picture. How could we get pattern work off a picture? I talked to, well, it would be Tom, when we had a discussion, Tom and I had a discussion about even cartoon books or coloring book little patterns. You can make patterns up from those, but that's probably another topic for another time. I do carve. This is, I like to carve people that I know. This is James Miller. He's been on with you guys before. So here's my little version of James as a Scandinavian character, or, well, actually a Halder folk. He loves to carve trolls. He loves nature. He does live here in Minnesota as well. And I've met him. Probably next time I'll see him is this summer. I'm sure I'll run into him. So I'll probably give him this as a gift. And this was my version of James as a Halder folk. And he's got he's got his little, you know, everyday knife that he carries. But then on the back side, we've got his little troll tail sticking out the back. So that will be a gift for James. I like giving gifts to people. Years and years ago, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to make a living being a carver? And when an old boy tells me, he says, can you imagine how many Santas you'd have to make and sell if you're going to be make a living at that? Well, I probably don't want. So I tried to sell things, and now I just give gifts, which I think is wonderful. I would say I have, I'm a member of a carving club. I don't really like the meeting portion of it, but I sure enjoy the activities and the people. And one time an old guy gets up there to show what he's made, and he gets up and he says, hey, everybody, this is a carving I made. And he says, here's my dog that I made, whatever, my carving I made of my dog. And he says, I'm 94 years old and I'm still love to carve. And as soon as he sat down, another guy comes up and says, hey, that's right. That's the oldest member of our club. He's 94 years old. I'm 93 years old. I'm waiting for him to die so I can be the oldest member of the club. He says, and everybody has a good chuckle about it. But guess what? This last year, he passed away. And unfortunately, and he probably takes with him 70 years of carving experience and knowledge that's now gone. So, I mean, so Blake and Tom, thank you so much for you guys and what you're doing, connecting people and sharing. This is, if we don't connect with one another, we don't learn from each other. And that's so thank you. But I'd say get to clubs and get to classes. All right, so I have other characters up here as well. This is, here's another little character. I do a series. That's another thing I'd really promote to people is work inside of a series. So I have these little old men, and then there's little old men smoking cigarettes or pipes or something like that. Or I've got these characters that are fishermen or captains, sea captain or something, looking out over the fjord or over the water. I've got series. Work inside of a series because the series will really foster growth in your carving. I have let's see, what else we got? Well, I enjoy other kind of carving as well. I've tried all kinds, and in immersion into wood carving and Scandinavian style wood carving, I've also found that I've enjoyed taking classes that are bracelet making and food preparation. And I went to North House Folk School. I took a class on timber frame carving and came home and built my first timber frame over my fire pit. Nothing impressive, but it was a really fun experience. So wood carving has led me in and opened up a whole new world of just the Scandinavian arts themselves. And it's been very rewarding and beneficial. All right, so I was at the ZZ Top concert, 50-year reunion, and Billy Gibbons gets up in front of everybody and he says, at the end of the concert, everybody's woo, 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 and he says, hey, everybody, just think, the same three guys, the same three chords, 50 years. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, That's like wood carving. The same 3 characters, the same 3 cuts, 50 years. That'd be awesome if a person could, have a career doing that. But that'd be me. I'd do the same 3 characters, same 3 cuts, 50 years. So now, as we're going forward now with this presentation, I've got a couple. I've got one thing to share. I guess Blake, if you want to, or Tom, at this time, you want to share that iPad so everybody can see. Does anybody have any questions so far at this time before you really jump forward?
I do have one question for you, sir.
Yeah.
Are you still teaching at the North Carolina Folk Art School? Because I did sign up for your class in February, I think, and they never called and said you were doing it or not doing it because they weren't certain with the virus if they were going to have it.
So
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be down there this August. So at the end of our conversation, we were going to be discussing that. And the guy said, well, promote what you're doing and where you're going to be. And I will be at the John C. Campbell Folk School, Brasstown, North Carolina. And that will be in August. I do a class, a Bigfoot class. They said, and the next following year, I'll be doing the Scandinavian figure carving during the Scandinavian Heritage Week. So I'll be there this August, and then I'll be there in next March.
So in August, it's not flat plane?
It's not flat plane in August. They said, we want you to come down and teach a class, but we want to save that flat plane for something else. So come up with a new idea. So in August, we're going to be building this little guy, or versions of this little guy, and it's going to be a classic Sasquatch. Apparently down there, you guys have some Sasquatch running through the woods. And I've already set up for my class. We're going to be taking a tour of a museum. We're going to be going out in the woods with a local guy who's going to call Sasquatch for us. It's going to be awesome. And not just this will be offered, but in the classes that I want to offer in the future, it's going to be, there'll be a main character, but I've got all kinds of little side projects that people can do and work on. But this is my little Sasquatch for that class. And I call him the swivel head Sasquatch. When you talk to your dog, he looks at you and he swivels his head and he says, what? You looking at me? Yeah, what? And he says, I don't believe in you either, whatever. So this is the carving that we're going to be doing down in North Carolina, and amongst some other things that I'll bring as options. So it'll be fun. It'll be a fun experience.
Can you show us your troll? I see a
Yeah.
troll there.
So this troll is, grab this guy. All right. So this troll is based on a Scandinavian carver, Otto Sveen. Well, it's S-V-E-E-N. And if you say it wrong, it means like pig, apparently, but I'm sure he wasn't like that. But anyway, so here's my little troll. It's built from a 4x4 block. I'm missing he fell off the counter and I broke his little stick, but this is the character that I built. He's coming out of nature. So he's got, little eggs on his head. And I did spray this with, we were in a discussion. This is not traditional because I'm a fan of do whatever you want. If you have an idea and it breaks tradition, go ahead and break tradition. It's not going to be so bad, I guess. And what I mean is I did not mute the colors. I left the colors very bright, bold. I actually spray finished this character. So that's a little atypical as well, but there's the troll, but it is based on Otto Sveen's troll characters. And this thing comes off. So you can look at his little guy. I also like antiquing the characters as well. So he was meant to be real clunky and blocky.
Thanks. I've been stumped on how to do their hair.
Well, okay, so wood carving is reductive sculpture. And as you create, you take away, as we all know. And layers and levels, that's very important. And create blocks. I used to carve my characters first with just carving their heads, and then I carve their bodies. And then I switched that because I would always constantly get these characters that had, I say bobbleheads or really big heads and very small bodies. And I kind of didn't want that look. As I was looking to the past and the carvers from the past, I think the Scandi carvers were really into proportion and scale. So that was closer and not yet comical or like the bobblehead characters. So I'm trying to follow that. But I do like the idea of, for example, like a weight distribution. So many people in my art classes in the past have said, you know, well, I can't, my mom's really good, or my brother's really good, or my dad's really, the only thing I can do is draw stickmen. And so if you are to draw characters, I could show that over here, but if you are to draw your characters, why not use a stick person? And that becomes the frame of your character. And then you just start shifting. Most of us would put that head in the middle, but what if we shift the head over? What if we shift the weight, visually shift the weight on a hip or on a leg, something like that. And then you get more interesting character. So once you start, most people start by starting with real static characters straight up and down, but eventually the goal would be to start getting a little more action, movement, maybe some motion into your character. And really it's not motion like walking, it'd be motion like just a shifting weight, pushing a head to one side, pushing a hip to another side, pushing an elbow out, whatever. I did start a series of characters now to kind of, I guess, put our characters into the, into more of the new, 21st century, I guess, with, things that are going on, the little mask characters, the COVID characters. I've got little old men with their cell phones taking selfies or talking on their phone. So trying to still be rooted in tradition, but bring some new ideas to the carvings. Any other questions before we move into some demos? No, we'll move in. If at this time we can do that, it'd be great. All right, so along the way, I was going to say here, we'll keep this guy here for just a moment. And all right, so as you've seen other people with their carvings, it's been, people say, you want to take your blank and your block, you want to knock off all the saw marks, all the machine marks. And, sometimes that's good. Sometimes they say, you know what, why not leave them on there? That's a texture as well. Here's what we're talking about with the flat plane carving. If we want to start, make a big sweeping cut, we start that cut and try to get that cut to be as long and sweeping as we could. I like to like we were saying, I like to knock off the edges of the characters. If you knock off the edge on the inside and the outside, you end up getting a dimensional quality to every part of your sculpture. So right there gives us that. I suppose I can cut him away as well. If you just knock the edges off, then you get that three-dimensional look that you're going for on your character. All right, so here is what I really want to share with everybody. And you've seen those videos before, and the character guys come on and share. But this is where this has been kind of a fun little pursuit, I guess you'd say. And here is I was sitting in a college art class, and the professor asked us a question. He said, what does a sculptor always have to be conscious of? What do you have to be conscious of in sculpture? And we were saying form, shape, texture, movement, balance. He said, yeah, it's all that stuff. But what it really is light. How does light come down and affect these sculptures that you're making? And where does it catch shadows? Where does it catch highlights? And as I was carving my little characters, it seemed like I could never get quite enough the idea of light being caught on the faces or the shapes without, I couldn't carve deep enough to get shadows. And so I started doing this, and that was taking 3/4 inch material. So if I pick him up and show this 3/4 inch material, and since I am, I don't know, an art guy, and I kind of like this, I've been taking people's photographs or some, special gifts for people, individual people. But here's a picture of Harley Refsall, just right off the internet. And he's showing one of his characters, and that's what he looks like. So I took him and I turned him into a sketch. And that sketch is kind of a simple caricature, just simplify the shape and line. In caricature, we all share the same features, eyes, nose, and mouth. But in caricature, if you can get the hair right and you can get the shape of the face right, then you're going to be successful and feel successful with your caricatures. well, here's another point about improving your sketching or drawing ability as a carver toward your success. I think now, as I've gotten a little more proficient in the characters in the carving, just working with the tools, I would say I spend more time researching and sketching than I do carving. I would say that would be true. There was one character I built. I did 27 sketches of this character before I finally found a pattern that I liked. And that is, I spent way more time on the drawing or the sketching than I did on the carving itself. Once I get these characters, I'll cut these out into patterns. And then I will take those patterns. Now we'll just put this all together. I'll take those patterns and disassemble the whole character into layers and levels. So what's going to be layer level number one? Obviously the back, his back of his head, his body itself. And then layer number two would be his arms and his head. I guess you learn along the way that push those ears to the back and they wouldn't be cut onto, or you wouldn't need those on this character or on this level or layer. This is just a 2-level character. Well, I guess it's a 3-level because I added a little bit for his nose. And this is an unfinished one. This is probably end up being a gift, but you can see like people like these because I think they look so dimensional and yet they are pretty easy to carve and put together. All right, so I got a little example here that I'd like to share or show for everybody, but let me move this guy over. I do have one more. I guess I'll grab him. And he was sitting on the back here, and this is probably going to be a little too much, but again, this is where like these to me, these are best displayed with on a backdrop or on a background, I think, because they're not meant to be seen all the way around. And this is the guy that founded North House Folk School in Grand Marais, Minnesota, which is all dedicated to the preservation of the Scandinavian hand arts. And this is, you can see him. So I saw a video of this guy, Don Hansen is his name, and he was out in the, or Mark Hansen, excuse me, out in the water. And he was, giving his philosophy on the old Scandinavian fishing boats, little working boats. And as he was bobbing around in the water, I'm like, man, that would be an awesome carving. And this is what it turned into be. So I turned it from the side, you can see its dimensionality, and it was 3/4 inch stuff. Harley Refsall saw these and he thought, wow, he said, wow, that's really cool. It's very interesting. He said, in the age now where maybe material is going to be harder to find, especially the heavier, thicker material, maybe this is a direction people could go with carving. And not that that's anything new, because people laminate their carvings all the time to get material size they want. All right, so here it is, guys. Here's my little demonstration for the day. Move this off to the side. Again, I really recommend everybody, take classes. It sounds all you guys are committed to that. It sounds like from the people that were coming on as I was listening. Take classes, get around people that think like you as well. All right, here it is. So for the purposes of today, here is my little demo. All right, there he is. All right, is that not in focus? It doesn't seem in focus. Hold on just a moment. All right, yeah, I guess that's pretty good. All right, there he is. Okay, so Blake Lunsford, you're going to get a gift in the mail. I heard you're from Bristol, Tennessee, so apparently I'm going to send something down to Bristol, Tennessee. So that'll be later. Okay, so what I like to do is take a sketch or make a sketch from a picture. The picture that I chose was just on the internet. And here, there it is. There it is. There's Blake Lunsford with his Yeti hat. And I almost put, I thought, well, maybe I'll put a Yeti in your hand, or whatever, but there he is. So from a picture, it comes a sketch. From that sketch, a pattern, and the pattern is here. The pattern does get disassembled. I did see your big Santa guy, so I put you with one of your Santa characters. And I do like how the design, lends kind of like with the Harley thing I did with a knife, kind of helps to point to the character. yeah, I could have your eyes, you know, looking over here at the character as well. This has about 4 or 5 levels. No, 1, 2, 3, 3. There might be a fourth if I choose to do that. Here's the start of my Blake Lunsford carving. And this, I did not put it all together because this little guy is going to be in the way. And the hat, the bill comes forward. It's going to be a little tricky to get around there. I'm a big fan of, like, again, doing things what works for you. And I kind of like to, lately I've been carving characters with their nose protruding forward and almost like where I can set the eyeballs onto the nose or set eyes onto the nose. But if I am going to try to carve this in the traditional Scandinavian fashion, it is going to be, and I don't really carve a lot on top of tables, but it's going to be, you guys can see that or not, but it's going to be 3 cuts. So I'm going to do a sweep cut on both sides. I actually like to use lines. I like to follow lines when I carve. It's helpful to me. I'm gonna try to get the character. Oh, I love it when the wood kind of chips out. I love the texture of like when you get a chip in the wood, something like that. Here I'm gonna start to remove material. And I hope everybody can see decent. Okay, that looks big V cuts. I really believe that the style that I like is, boy, I got another story for you too. The style that I like is simple cuts, big V cuts, push cuts, pull cuts. I read a blog, or I read some guys were kind of arguing, you know, on the internet about ripping Scandinavian carvers, saying you guys aren't any good. You Scandi carvers aren't very good. You guys simplify your shade. You hide your hands. Let's see if we can get a little character back here. Well, I'll just use my little Harley guy. Hey, you guys, you hide hands, you simplify all your cuts. And I'm like, well, you know, if this little guy is my response would be, if this little guy is going to stand around for, you know, 100 years, he better be comfortable, right? All right, so this head up here, I'd like to knock the edges off of this. Hopefully I'm in the frame. Knock this side off. Go back to drawing again. I like to have some lines to follow. I don't do well without a line, I find, but nice big smile.
Sorry, Charles. Is each layer out of 3/4 inch stock?
Say again?
Is each layer out of 3/4 inch stock?
It is out of 3/4 inch material. Yep. And it's again, as maybe the heavier, bigger material is harder to find. Maybe this is going to be kind of something fun or a new direction that carvers could go. Probably the most appealing part about this is that it offers such great shadows. Like you can really get a sense of depth or relief from laminating these parts and pieces. And I think as a guy that appreciates, you know, like drawing, sketching, and the challenge of creating a caricature, I appreciate the simplicity of it. I actually forgot what I was going to say, but I like the idea that each piece is part of the whole, and it gives dimension and depth. All right. Any other questions as we carve a little bit more here? So Blake, this will take me, you know, the rest of the afternoon.
Yeah.
Are you using a Harley knife for your carving?
You know, I do have a Harley knife. I actually have 2 Harley knives. I just picked one up this last weekend. And just one thing to note for everybody, I think those are going to become harder and harder to find. So if you are interested in a Harley knife, the current knives look like this. And they are tuned up just for this type of carving. The top has got a rolled edge, so if you're into a cut, you can roll out of it a little bit easier. A nice flat Scandi grind for nice flat slicing cuts. Good length to get into and out of, or into like difficult areas. But I'm pretty sure that the guy making these is probably not going to be making many more. So if you're looking for a Harley knife, you want to get one. This is the one I'm currently using, is an OCC tool, and these I like. They're reasonable, same blade. Move that out of the way. Same style of blade. And this was all tuned up and ready for the little demonstration today. So what I do is just remove around these, clean up those little cuts there. Any other questions about any of the characters behind me or style of the this? I don't know if this interests or is of interest to people, but I think it has some merit when you consider material might be harder to find in our future.
Hey, Charles, what do you use to glue them up with? Just regular wood glue, or?
Yeah, just I don't use anything special for that. Regular wood glue and just an Elmer's wood glue works just fine for me. I don't need the poly glues or anything special like that. No. And again, just simplify, just knock the edges off, knock the corners off. I don't use a lot of V tools for hair. I try to kind of get, again, just use one tool and carve hair with that. Although I do have a V tool, I'm not opposed to use it. It's a great tool and does its job.
Charles, do you have any written literature?
No, I don't. And I think that's probably coming in the future, I would say. I know people love, a book would be awesome to, share and show with people. But the one thing I would love to offer this as a class and work on this, but I'm not sure how it would work with every single person in the class bringing some, like, hey, I want to carve grandpa, or I want to carve a present for, I want to carve. That would be seems like it might be a little tricky to get everybody successful, but I don't know. We'll see. But it would be something kind of interesting to do.
Charles, could you tell us again where and when you're going to be teaching in North Carolina?
So the North Carolina is going to be in the second week in August. I believe you can look up on the website, John C. Campbell Folk School. It's second week in August this summer. This will be a week-long course, and it'll be this character, the Yeti. It's a Sasquatch character. Swivel-head Sasquatch, what we'll call it.
Thank you.
Hey, Charles, I was going to say, if this one turns out, I can't imagine everyone wouldn't want a little Blake Lunsford on their desk.
There you go, right? Why not? Well, as a matter of fact, I'm through the Vesterheim Folk Art School. I proposed this as a class, Harley refs. Everybody carves Harley characters, as we've seen on the internet. Why not carve Harley himself? And you can take him home and put on your shelf, which would be pretty fun. So this will probably end up being something that they do in the future. And Harley said, yeah, that'd be great. He'd be pleased if people did that. But yeah, that's anyway, that is I guess any other questions anybody would have?
Charles, where you been hiding at, man? I can't believe I've not heard of you before.
Yeah, this is all new to me, and like most of us, we just sit in our little basement with level 1. I don't know. I've been very private with all this stuff in the past, and but now I would like to share more, start the classes, maybe get around and meet more people. One of my favorite experiences was Alex Yerkes. I heard he was coming to Minnesota for a spoon festival, so I carved a character. You can see it on my Instagram page, or I don't have it here obviously because it was a gift to him, but just meeting and connecting with other people has been such a treat, and seeing what other people do. There's so many talented people out there. It's unbelievable. And it sure is nice to be around people who think like you do as well. So take classes and get involved in local clubs and community events and so on. But now it seems like it's all going to be virtual. So maybe that's how we're going to have to make our connections. All right. Any other questions?
When you were talking about putting movement in your characters,
Yes.
like the head going one way and the hip going the other, is that on one character that you move the head one way with the opposite hip going out? You know what I'm saying? Like he's leaning, maybe would be the word.
So yeah, so what you could do is, what I end up doing a lot is I'll take a block that I'll be, wanting to carve a character from, and I'll just trace the block. It ends up probably being many times doing this, but so once you've got that block, I've learned a long time ago, don't be drawing on your wood blank. It's just it's not very successful. You end up, you can't erase very well. And so I just end up drawing on paper. When you shift weight, you can look this up on, also like if you were to look on the internet, you just type in little old man, with cane or something like that, and you'll see how people shift. But yeah, if the head's going one way, if we find a center line down the middle, if the head's sitting on one side, the hip and the body would shift to the other side. And then you can like bring it across or bring it in as well. For example, like this, and we'd end up with the head. I always start with a block. I always start to place the head. The human body is 7.5 or 8 heads high. This one's obviously going to be a little bit short, but that's all right. When I first started carving, I had such difficulty with very short characters, very short legs, and so I tend to push the pant line up, and I'll have a shorter body and a longer leg or torso. For example, here we could have like the feet this way. It'd be a big cutout through here. There you go. So yeah, so if that's the center line, just start pushing things opposite the center line, and you'll end up with a character that should be with a strange weight distribution, we'll say, not necessarily normal. But that would be a fun character to cut out and carve, I do believe.
Thank you.
Any other questions or questions from characters you see behind?
Hey, Charles, can you talk a little bit about your finishing process and your painting process?
Sure. So those, I got that back here. I'm a big fan of just craft acrylics, just what most of us have available to us, the craft acrylic paints. I like to thin those down. They do say in the traditional Scandinavian painting, you want to thin it down, your paints, thin it down so much that when you paint over the top of a newspaper, you can still read the newspaper. And you can see on some of my characters, I don't do that, but they do want to, and so it becomes a paint wash. You'd call it a paint wash. It's really nice also to try to get some paint that comes straight out of a bottle. So here's craft acrylics. Obviously, paint that comes straight out of a bottle, I would consider the medium tone, because you can always make it darker and you can always make it lighter. And try to do that with your painting. Try not to have paints that are colors that are flat and one color. Try to mix a little light, mix a little dark, and try to get some movement to even the color as you paint. And that could be down in the dark areas. You make them even darker, and where the highlights would hit, that could be even lighter. A lot of times I will brush over the top with a kind of an antiquer or a highlight as well. And let's see if I have an example of that. Here's a cowboy that I'm currently working on. And you can see how the cowboy, try to get a little more light tones, the highlights on his beard. This one is not going to be, I've had people just, oh, you're not carving it from the same block of wood. Well, I'm like, no, that doesn't matter. It's make it work for you. I'm going to probably end up putting on some cool leather brim for his cowboy hat, and then I'll place the rest of the cowboy hat on. But dry brushing is another great technique that you can use, like we were saying, for details on your characters, highlights, shadows. And then I have gotten away from, so I use Danish oil. I use the Danish oil. This is just a natural color, but I've got a little special mix in the back where I take some heavier Danish, darker Danish, and I mix. And there's no big secret to it. It's just trying to get a warmer tone. And then you just dunk your characters into this concoction. Danish oil is nice. It's a great sealer, but it's not, in the old days it was boiled linseed oil, and that stuff is flammable and dangerous. So a lot of the carvers are using this today, or a lot of the Scandi carvers are using this today. So that's my painting and finishing techniques that I've used. Any other questions? I don't think I have any other.
I'm learning a little bit more about carving, and I started learning a little bit about flat plane, and I realized how difficult it is. The key to design is simplicity, right? I was wondering how your three-dimensional is being accepted by what I'm finding to be the purists in carving. You mentioned it a little bit, but I was curious what the thoughts were.
Well, I'm not. I guess so. You're saying how are these carvings received by carvers? Well,
I love it.
My response is, when Harley saw this, who to me is the ultimate flat plane carver. As a matter of fact, he's the guy that coined the phrase flat plane carving. When he saw this and got excited about it, that was validation enough for me. And for me, this was just a fun way to use some drawing skills and some caricature work and put together with carving. And so I guess if I got some if Harley liked it, then I'm no more to be said, right?
Yep.
I guess, but yeah, I don't know. Everybody's just make it work. If you want to, glue things together, there's an artist that does a beautiful job with laminated wood here in Minnesota. He makes blocks, big blocks out of laminated wood, but you can't see a glue seam. You can't, it looks like one original piece, but he glues everything together, and you got to make it work for you.
I have to make a comment. Having seen and followed a YouTube channel that does caricature drawings. He's a black guy, and this Rouser channel, and he helps people develop their own caricatures of either famous people or just how it's all done. I'm so impressed to see a carver that actually has those artistic abilities and then uses that in carving, and then you stack them up and created from those skills.
Yeah, thank you. That's
it's impressive.
Yeah, thanks. Very kind. I think there is a new direction that people might be interested in with these, for sure. Like you say, it is fun. It's dimensional. It's something totally different. But it does require you. But again, if you can just get, like for me, if you can get the hair right and you get the shape of the face right, everything else will fall into place on these characters. So I would say to people, don't be scared of them, but try to keep them as simple as you can. And for Blake's face, I just kept it very blocky and you know, we know he's more handsome than this, of course, but you got to keep it simple. Right,
Needs to
Blake?
be more fat on there.
No. And then of course this is the rest of it. As we keep going, this will be the finished. We'll get that put together. There it is. And you know, the brim is going to make an awesome shadow effect. It's going to be cool.
How do you get the bill of the hat to fit onto the head after the head is carved?
Yeah, so what I've done was, good question. I don't know if you can see this, but I have reference marks to where that bill belongs. And I've carved down to those reference marks and I've stopped. Now, one thing to note is if you are going to be doing any kind of pattern work and cutting things out and tracing, your pattern becomes bigger. And there is a little extra material that I left on here so I can remove. Probably right there looks pretty good, I guess. But I did leave reference marks so I don't carve into those areas. I did not want to put normally I would put the bill on, and I've done this in the past and made the mistake of now I can't get a tool inside that space to finish the eyes. And I only want to use a knife. This is not a Scandinavian character, but it is that style of flat plane carving. And that's another thing that people were, you know, kind of saying or sharing was that, you know, how you really shouldn't call it a Scandinavian character or Scandinavian flat plane carving because it's not a Scandinavian subject, but it's still cut in that flat plane style. And I only want to use a knife. I'm not going to use chisels and gouges and anything else to get inside that space. But well, like I say, I'll just leave that off. I'll carve up to the point where there is a connection to the bill, and then I shouldn't have a mistake or a problem. And I'm not a big fan of like wood fillers and things like that. So I left quite a bit of chunky material for that bill. So the bill could come down quite a bit in size, but as we all know, the thinner it gets, the easier it is to break off. So
Charles, is the bill of that cat vertical like the rest of the wood?
yeah, so everything is, the grain's all running straight up and down, and that's on everything. And I've again experimented with that. So this grain is running straight up and down as well. And it's so it's easier to, I think it's easier for me. It makes sense and it's easier to carve. And if you start messing with the wood grain, then you can't get, as you get from one layer to the next, you're going to have a hard time getting through those layers if you have shifted the grains different directions. Makes sense?
Yeah, so Charles, Greg Weimer actually just south of you down in Marshall, Minnesota. So I didn't even know that you were in Litchfield. So that's fantastic. But two questions. One, prior to this whole presentation, I went out to Facebook to try to find you. I didn't find anything. So you mentioned Instagram. And I don't know if that's a personal page or a wood carving page, but if you do have a wood carving Instagram kind of deal, if you can share that with Blake so that we can kind of go out and check out some of the other things you've done, that'd be sweet. And two, I'm not sure if you have a pattern for Blake Lunsford, but again, I've met Blake and kind of just over the last few months and stuff like that. I wouldn't mind trying my hat at it, so to speak. And so I don't know if that's something that you'd be willing to do or not, but I think anyone that's kind of watched today has been really impressed with this kind of opportunity and option here. So I think it's cool. I'd love to have one on my shelf. So
thanks, man. I appreciate that. I'm sure I could do that. Blake, wow, you're quite everybody loves you, apparently.
People don't have enough ugly in their house, I guess.
Oh, there you go. Interesting.
Hey, if you want to share that pattern with us, we'll make sure that we can post it out there for people to have.
I can do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Yep. And then what you would do, everybody, is just cut that, print multiple prints of it, and then just cut it apart as needed. And it's 3 layers, 3 levels. I also I've got some pictures that I can post of the process and the finished carving as well. So he says, also, I actually grew up in Marshall. I'm a Marshall kid. So in response to that guy from Marshall, that's kind of fun. All right.
And also, Charles, just to answer Greg's question, all of your links will be in the show notes for the YouTube. So if anyone's looking for Charles, you go to the YouTube page and click on the links below, his Facebook, his Instagram, and where he will be teaching in the future.
Yep. So, and this is all new to me. So thank you very much for your interest. That's been great. I am very just entry level with social media. So we'll hopefully get more out there in our near future.
Yeah, Charles, this is Jack Harris. I'm from Winona, Minnesota, down a little further south of you. But you referenced that Dell might not be making the Harley knife anymore.
I was told. So
Okay.
or going down on it. And
Yeah.
so if you're interested in Harley knife, you better get on one, I guess.
Yeah, because he makes wonderful tools.
Who was that makes them? Can you say that name again?
Dell Stubbs, and he's at Pinewood Forge.
Yeah, I just checked Pinewood Forge and they're all sold out. So there's a wait list already.
Yeah, and I can't speak for his business, but I know they're gonna be harder to find. I tried to buy. There's an older guy at the club I'm in, and he had a Harley shorty knife. I've never seen one in my life, and I tried to buy it from him right there. Do you think he sold it?
No,
not a chance.
As long as I've known Dell, he's had everywhere from a 3 to 6 month wait for his products.
Yeah. Well, once you find a good supplier, it's wonderful. But these tools have been, these OCC ones have been kind of a good $25 knife, and they've been working well for me. Although I gotta tell, I've bent a few, but who hasn't? All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, Charles, is that a 2-inch knife or 1 3/4?
I'm gonna say it's probably a 1 3/4.
Great, thanks.
Probably. Although you could.
Has anyone ever heard of the Bravo 51 knives? Does anybody know anything about those? No?
I went on Bravo 51's website a month or so back, and he's making a lot of Skinner knives and bushcraft knives, but I didn't see at that time any carving knives.
He has a wonderful rough out knife I'm curious of getting, but they're expensive. It's $65, but I can't decide to get it because but I went on the reviews and they're very good. The reviews are very good, but thank you.
Charles, I'm curious about your technique for your eyes. Do you rely on more painting in the eyes, or do you carve them out?
I do. Let's see. I want to say I do carve them out. I don't know if you can see this. I do carve them out, but I do try to do it as simple as possible. There is a upper eyelid. There is a flat. There's no bottom to the eyelid like you see on my eye, right? I don't do a bottom eyelid. I'll just do a flat. There is an upper eyelid. There is a brow. But now I am kind of interested in carving them on. Oh, I'm sorry, painting them on. And this one is an example of, here's a little guy that he's going to end up with the flat cut from his cheek up to his eye. I will be painting these on, and I'm curious how that's going to work out, if I'll like that or not.
Very good. Thank you.
So I'll do both. I'm not opposed to trying all kinds of different things.
You really captured Harley's personality in that one piece you were just showing us.
Thanks. Yeah, he's an awesome guy. And like I said, everybody carves Harley pieces. Why don't we get together and carve Harley? Maybe he can even be a guest for us. We can, hear some stories of his. But the other thing is glasses. I've always wired glasses, built them from wire and put them in place. I don't know if anybody has suggestions or great ideas for carving glasses, but Anything?
Dave Stetson.
All right, guys, any other questions for Charles for today?
Blake, is this going to be recorded? I missed the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, as we do every week, we'll go ahead and post the recording out on YouTube this afternoon.
Okay,
And
good.
I'll also go over on Facebook and link it on there, so you'll be able to find it in either place.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, it'll stay out there, and all of Charles's information will be on there, like Tom said.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Charles, if there's nothing else, we appreciate you coming on and joining us today and presenting. Definitely some interesting work that you do. I appreciate you taking on my ugly mug and deciding to do a carving with that, and look forward to seeing how that turns out. I'll definitely post that out on social media as well when you get it finished. So look forward to seeing how that looks. But we look forward to other things from you, and anything that we can share that you're doing, please let us know so that we can put that out there each week. Want to let you all know about other presenters that we have coming up. Next weekend, we'll have Tom Matus that's coming on. He's a duck decoy carver. He's going to be coming on talking to us about that process. We have Eric Owens that's agreed to come on and present on May the 22nd. Eric's a caricature carver. He has some videos out on YouTube, so you can go out and check him out before he presents. He'll be on the 22nd. And then Roger Stegall, and I think I just saw him on the meeting as well. He's going to be presenting for us on June the 5th. And again, if you all have attended classes, the Renegade, Woodcarvers Roundup, or looked at YouTube videos lately, you'll see Roger out there. He's been teaching quite a while, and look forward to hearing from Roger on June the 5th. So that's what we have lined up so far. Tom and I are working diligently to try to get other carvers lined up so that we can continue our schedule through the summer. Again, if you all know of anybody that wants to present or any recommendations, let us know and we'll try to reach out to those people. But it should be a good summer of carving, and we plan on continuing this process through the summer every Saturday at 3 p.m. So thank you all for joining us today. Thanks for joining us every week on the International Association of Woodcarvers, where carvers are helping carvers. And we'll see you all next Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Tom Matus. Thank you all and have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.